Working with a single point chart is a wonderful way to test your skills with working with Microsoft Excel. I have included this particular file in the work file so that you can test your own knowledge. Along with testing yourself on the single point, which we'll be doing shortly, I'd also encourage you to go to the tab that says Test Yourself. Here, you'll notice more of a dashboard style for the completion. You should ensure that you're capable of creating this chart from scratch prior to the examination. First, let's go to the single point. On the single point, I've left some brief notes for you to follow to get the feel for how this was created. You'll need to note that this is actually created off of one item on the spreadsheet, hence single point. It is the percentage complete to date, 62%, that is being charted. If I go to day 7 and I add in more customers, you will notice that it changed 64% to 64%. This particular chart is made with a simple stacked chart. I am on percentage to date and I have just selected the 64%. I will go to Insert, and in Insert I'm simply going to Column and a stacked column. You will notice that our chart looks very different at this point. The first thing I'll do is just change the siding of the chart itself. I've just made it as thin or as thick if I'd like to. I am now going to do a right click right on the data series and select that component. Here is where we'll have the opportunity to change the gap. Remember, gap fills in the whole screen. This is what gives me the impression that it's going to be ultimately a thermometer. I'm going to close and go over to the legend. When I format the legend this time, I'm going to choose not to show a legend at all. So I'm just going to remove the legend from the screen itself. Now, you'll notice that the percentage to date is appearing on the screen. Once again, if I do not want the information, I can delete it out. I am simply selecting each of the items on the chart that I would like to change. In this case, the axis on the bottom. You'll notice on the axis that it's asking to put the label on. Because there's only one series, I'll simply turn it off. You should be noticing that what this is allowing us to do is to really explore all the different dialog boxes that go into the charting. You'll notice now that you start seeing it take shape a little at a time. If I go to the chart itself now and go into Format the Data Series, I can go in and change the fill. The fill in this instance has been changed with the gradient effect. Very lightly you can see where the changes occur. As a general rule, the top is normally lighter and the bottom is normally darker. If I go into the gradient fill, I can choose which direction that I'll actually have my charting done. I am now going to do linear up, and you'll notice that the dark is on the bottom. I can simply go ahead and say OK. I can now adjust the sizing however I would like to make it as thin or as thick as I'd like. I'm now going to the background. Once again, to a right click on the Format Chart area, and this time I'm going to ask it not to put any lines and not to put any fill that is a gradient or a solid. I will, however, leave it on automatic so it stays white in the background and the text behind does not bleed through. Now, when we're working with this information, the actual bottom of the thermometer is an actual shape that has been added. In this case, I need to insert a shape in a circular form. So I'm going to take the basic shape as the circle and just draw in this circle. Once I draw in the circle, I can go to the Shape Fills and once again choose a gradient. I'll choose a gradient with the darker color on top and literally superimpose this in the background. I will need to turn off the outlines. I will need also to actually change the fill color so that it's closer to what I was working with. In this case, I will actually do a right click on the shape itself, go to Format the Shape, and now I'll go into the colors. When I'm in the color, I'll simply go ahead, change my color towards the bottom, and choose the blue of my choice. When I choose the blue, you'll notice now that the very top, the first stop is blue. I can then go on to each of the stops within and change the coloring of the blue to superimpose the thermostat on the bottom of the actual chart itself. You will need to maneuver it around just a bit to get the feel of it. You may also choose to send it to the back. Here's where we get used to the features. This time I'm going to ask for no fill in the background. Notice now my chart bleeds through. This is why we'll want to choose whether or not we want these components with a solid fill or a backfill. You'll notice as we do, our chart is starting to take shape. It requires some playing around to get acclimated with these features. In the interest of time, I've tried to just take you through the basics. You'll notice I would have to round the corner, I would have to stretch out the background, so there's still a few more things to do. On the side of the screen, you'll see the actual instructions to take you step by step. Again, remember, if you're unfamiliar with the charts, you may wish to go back to the Excel automations, which will take you through it in more detail. Play around, get the feel of it, and remember, the key here is practice.